So in our previous video, we went ahead and went through the steps to create an account for ChatGPT. We then moved on and tried a number of different prompts to understand what it's capable of doing. So we got it to write a college essay, we got it to write a political article, we got it to write a rap in the voice of Eminem. We got it to translate a number of different languages, including Arabic and Hindi. And we got it to make our own personalized itinerary on what to do for 3 days in Kelowna, BC. And it was able to tackle that no problem at all. And just by looking at that, it's very obvious to everybody that great, this is extremely powerful. It can be really used to supercharge your day-to-day life, your day-to-day work, and something that we did not see yesterday, but it can absolutely handle, is it can very, very easily write code. So I could just say, write a function in Python to something simple, right? So to delete all the files that end in the letter S within a directory, okay? And you'll see that it's going to go right ahead and write that code. So it's also very, very useful to write code right away. So extremely powerful as it is, but what if we want to go one layer below that? What if we want to write our own, um, you know, code to make our own tool that utilizes this ChatGPT's intelligence? And that's exactly what we're going to be attempting to do today. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to follow along in the steps that I take, and together we'll be able to write our own chatbot, and I'm calling my chatbot MiniMe, as you'll see in a moment. But we'll be able to write our own chatbot that's able to handle our questions. So it's our own terminal, it's our own chatbot, but you'll basically see how we can leverage the power of the model of ChatGPT and dress it up in the tools of our choice. Named my chatbot MiniMe right here, and it's essentially a simple chatbot that uses a very simple model that is available on the GPT on the OpenAI model directory, and yeah, it's pretty much ready to roll in terminal. So how can I help you? Tell me a joke. Here we go. If I could type joke. There you go. Why did the chicken cross the road? Perfect. So it's a very simple chatbot, but the whole idea is I want to make sure that we're able to code this thing ourselves. And so that's going to be the main focus of this video. And by the end of it, as I said, you'll be able to do it yourself. Okay, so the first thing you want to do to get your personal chatbot going is get yourselves API keys. In order to get the API key, pretty straightforward. You can just go to the OpenAI website, and I'm going to show you how. But it's just basically type in OpenAI API key, and it should be the first thing right here. So you can click on the first option right here, and if you have already signed into your OpenAI account, which you would have if you were following the previous video and were testing out ChatGPT, then you should just be directed to this page and you would be logged in already. If you have not signed in, and if you don't have a username and password with OpenAI, it's very simple to just sign up and create one. Ultimately, you want to end up in this page. I already have my API keys created because of the projects that I've been working on, but if you don't have yours, you can just click on Create New Secret Key. Remember to copy your secret key in a secure location, because it's not going to be shown on your portal for security reasons, so just make sure you're copying it somewhere safe. Once you're done with that, the next important thing is to go into your billing page right here and add a payment method. So this could be a simple credit card that you add, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, but just add a payment method because it does cost to use the API. It's a fraction of a cent for 1,000 requests, so it's next to nothing, but you do need it. And then you can set the usage limits. So I've set mine to 100. obviously you can set that to as little as $5 and it's going to do the job. I've been using my API calls for the last couple of days at least, and I've only used under $2, so it's very, very well priced. But yeah, make sure you do this so that your API is actually functional. Once you've done this, and you have your API ready to go, we are now ready to move on to the actual coding. So for the actual coding side of things, we're going to be using Python, and I use Visual Studio as my code editor. You can use anything. You can use PyCharm if you want. You can use Notebook. Really anything, does not matter. You just need a simple code editor, and that's pretty much it. So once you've got the code editor ready to go, I'm going to start a new file. I'm going to call this one my first chatbot.py because it's a Python file. So we'll open this up, create file, and there we go. Just like that, we've got the editor open and ready to go. And with that, we are now going to start writing our chatbot. What I will do is, as I'm writing this up, I'm going to start explaining it as well, so that we're kind of going through those pieces together. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import OpenAI, and what this is doing is it's basically importing the library of OpenAI. So it's importing the Python package, which we will need to interact with the OpenAI API, right? So if you don't have OpenAI, you're just going to need to do a pip install OpenAI, and it's good to go. Next thing, we're going to want to import JSON, so we are basically also going to need to parse the JSON responses from the OpenAI API. So that's why we're going to need the JSON. Once you've got those guys going, next thing you want to do is enter your API key. So here's how we are going to do that. And obviously I'm going to not enter my key here, but I'll just mention it so that you can enter your key that we copied in the previous section of this video. So this is how OpenAI will know, or this is how your code will know, what account to use when it is basically trying to get the API requests going. Next thing we'll be doing is we'll be actually telling it what model engine to use for this one. So for this one, we're going to be using text DaVinci 002. So the OpenAI website, if you go onto it, it's got a number of models, and let me just open it up here. I'll just actually check it here. So if you go to Google, you go to OpenAI models page. There we go. There's a list of all the OpenAI models, right? So each model is going to have its own price. It's going to have its own strengths and weaknesses, and so on and so forth. So if you want to learn more about what each model is and what each model is doing, definitely go on here on this page and check it out. So for this one, we're using the text DaVinci 002. It's got similar capabilities to text DaVinci 003, which is right here, which is can do any language task, longer output, consistent instruction following, and it's basically an older model, but it uses lesser tokens or lesser cost. So I'm going to use this one for the simple demonstration. So that's what that is. Okay. Continuing on. So we've given it the model, we've given it our API key, and now we'll go into writing our first function. So this is going to be the function, and that will be calling generate underscore response, and it's going to take in prompt as an input. Okay, and I'll just write the function out, and then I'll basically do an explanation of it so that it's consistent. So we'll have response as the OpenAI dot completion dot create, and then we'll basically get the engine model underscore engine. We'll do prompt will be prompt. Do max tokens. I'll set it to 1,000. You can set it to 100. I'll explain to you what it does in a moment, but to that n will be 1 here. We'll go stop equal to none. Oops. Things like that. Yep. Okay. And we'll do temperature. Temperature equals to, I want it to be, let's be halfway somewhere. That's the mistake. And yeah, that should be pretty much that section of it. We'll take message as a variable here, and we'll have it basically do response dot choices. Text dot strip, and then we'll have a return message over here, right? Okay, so what the heck does this function do? So this function, and if you are new to Python, I do recommend to just go ahead and watch a couple of YouTube videos on just basics of Python. I think that's going to be tremendously helpful. But anyway, so this function, a function is essentially nothing but just a chunk of code that is supposed to do a particular job. That's all. So this function, we're calling it generate response, and it's going to take in prompt as its input. And it's going to return a response, right? When you look at the response piece here, what it's doing is it's going to send a request to the OpenAI API to generate a response based on the prompt that we give to it. That's what this section right here does. Okay. Now the first thing here, engine. Engine basically specifies the GPT-3 model engine that we'll use to generate the response, right? The prompt, it just basically specifies the prompt we'll use to generate the response. Max tokens over here, I've set 1,000, but this specifies the maximum number of tokens to generate the response, and that just means, tokens is what is directly correlated to your pricing. So, the bigger the number of tokens you use, the more expensive a particular response will be for you, right? N specifies the number of responses to generate per prompt. So, you can have this as 5, and you can have a much longer response. And then stop, it specifies the stop sequence that will end the response generation. So in this case, we're not using any, so that's why it's none. And then finally, temperature. So temperature will specify the randomness of the generated response. So if you've got a lower number here, so this goes from 0 to 1, obviously. If you've got a lower number, like 0.1, your results will be more predictable. But if you've got a higher temperature, then, it'll be more creative or unpredictable. So that's why I went right in the middle at 5. Finally, this one here message, this is going to parse the JSON response from the OpenAI API, and it's going to extract the response text, and then return message will just return that response text. Right, so that's the first function that we've got going on. We're going to keep moving on and have the second function written in here, and this one's going to be called chat. So it's just going to be def chat, right? And this is going to be more of an interface function. So, oops. This is going to be more of an interface function, so it's what you see on the screen, right? So I'm going to say, let's call this bot, let's call this not MiniMe, but call it you. And say, hey, how can I help you today? Question mark. Boom. So that's what the user is going to see on the terminal, and then we'll get a while loop going. So we'll say while true, user underscore input equals input. Oops. You close this up, and then prompt. Oops. What's going on with my spellings today? prompt. We'll have f user underscore input. Then we want to go to the next line. And we're going to say bot right here. Okay, so we'll do that. Then we'll have a bot response happening. Generate response in the input prompt. That's the function we're calling. So this is the function that we just wrote. That's what we're calling right here, basically. And then we're going to print the response that basically comes out of it, right? So we're going to say, but we're going to make, let's not say bot. We're going to say mini. Yeah, so we're going to make it say basically f mini u says, and then whatever the response is, right? So bot underscore response. There we go. Yeah. So we'll do that. Close it up. Alrighty. So that should take care of that. So what this function is doing is it's actually taking care of the chat functionality, right? So here we're basically, this is what we'll see when we interact. So this is going to be mini-u saying, hey, how can I help you? And then we're putting a little while loop here, and we're assigning, the user input variable, which is going to be the input that you put while chatting with your chatbot. And then we're basically creating another variable prompt that's going to go as an input to the function that we just created here. And then the output's going to be shown on the terminal screen. So that's just it. Very, very straightforward piece right there. And once we're done with that right there, the only thing to do is go ahead and call the chat function. So that's what we'll do. We'll just go ahead and call chat. And that should set us up. With those functions written out. What I've done now is I've just opened up a terminal window. I went ahead and added my API key into the code, and make sure you've done that as well. With that, the terminal window is open. Make sure you run your code with Python 3, or just Python. But with that, that's all we got to do. So just Python 3, chatbot.py, give it a go, and that should run your code just like that. How can I help you? Right, and you can basically now play around with it. Mind you, we are using the text DaVinci 002 as the model. So this is, excuse me, not quite the model that is being used on the web page, or on the website, I'm sorry. And so if you go back to the models page, these are the latest GPT 3.5 Turbo, is I think what we were using in the previous video. And this is actually a much more optimized model. So that's going to have responses more similar. So you can obviously go around and change the model you're using, but this is going to be a more rudimentary model because we are using the DaVinci 002, text DaVinci 002. So be mindful of that. But other than that, that's it. That's your chatbot. So you can start playing with it as you like. And I told it to tell me a joke last time. Now I will say, give me the recipe for butter chicken. Let's see. So it's going to go ahead, run the model, and then it's going to give me these 10 steps as a recipe for butter chicken. Yeah, right. Now, as I mentioned, your size of the number of tokens. So in your generate response function, your max tokens will matter. So if your max tokens are 100 and not 1,000, then this might just end at the 4th step, and that's really what that means. But other than that, you're good to go. You are good to go. Give me a brief history of Apple. There you go. So it's up and running. Let's see, what is your name? I don't know if it knows its name. John. So it's went with a very safe bet because our temperature is set to 0.1. So it's going to go with the most reasonable logical answer. That's interesting that it picked John. But there you have it. This is basically your own chatbot that you can play around with. Obviously, we can take this up a notch by putting it on a web page or a web browser and having it in a live website. But this is really the fundamental crux of it. And if you've gotten up to this point, then congratulations, you now know how to use the OpenAPI model, and you can play around with all kinds of different things now. Awesome. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe and share the video. But other than that, I will see you next time.